There you go.
Good morning from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. This is Sports Talk. I'm Dr. Arthur Ogden, Chair of Sports Management, and I serve as moderator for these discussions. Every Wednesday morning at this time, we bring members of the faculty who have expertise in some of the sports areas we discuss, and we tackle them as best we can. This morning, our guest panelist is Dr. Fred Cromartie, who is the Director of Doctoral Studies, and has quite a bit of expertise in sport, and in particular the Olympics. Now, I know we've just gotten done the college football playoffs. We've had the AFC and the NFC playoffs, and now, of course, the New England Patriots are embroiled in another, quote, scandal about ball inflation, which seems rather ludicrous. And we've got baseball players signing $120 million contracts. So we've had a really, really busy week. But before we get to that, Fred, how do you like my sweater?
Very nice sweater. I like that.
Yeah, we have these on sale, and you need to know this, in our bookstore here on the campus, and you can go online and take a look at them. This is a merino wool or something, and it's really very nice. So those of you that might be interested, check out our bookstore. At any rate, Thursday, Boston was informed by the USOC that it would be the nominee from the United States to become the host city for the 2024 Olympics. And that's a ways off, of course, but this is how they do things. So today we want to take a look at that, and we know that there are some difficulties and some problems. We know some of the other cities in the past who have hosted these Olympiads have had less than wonderful success, and some of them had great success. And considering what the city of Boston has gone through with the crowded conditions they have, the Boston Marathon, and that trial is still going on.
The Boston Big Dig.
Yeah, the Big Dig, which somebody made a lot of money off of that. There seems to be a lot of questions. Without getting into the details of the popularity of it all right now, do you think Boston is ready for an Olympiad?
From the initial pre-bid process that they submitted in comparison with the other American cities and that, they do appear that they are prepared. They have addressed some of the concerns that the USOC and the IOC has had in regards to cities submitting bids to host the Olympic Games. The major concern, though, is what you propose on paper. And because it's 2024, is that actually something that can come to fruition? Okay. Right. Now, one of the major concerns that all of the cities, and especially the citizens of Boston, are concerned about is the fact that for the Winter Olympiads, a bunch of cities had pulled out of 2020.
Right.
Okay. So the citizens of Boston are saying, wait a minute, we have to allocate our resources to host these games and to build these infrastructures and facilities. And if we do that, then we're neglecting some of the major issues that we need to be taking care of right now, which is housing, education, transportation, healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Brazil went through that, not only with the Olympics, but with the World Cup.
Yeah. And these are major concerns that people have, because folks are saying to themselves, the expense that we go through isn't worth it in the long run.
Right.
And ultimately they're finding out that it's not worth it in the long run, because, as you said, some cities have been successful. Those that have been successful are very few.
Yeah,
those that have been unsuccessful are numerous. And the classic example is Montreal hosted the 76 Summer Olympics. They just finished paying that off last year.
The irony is, it was when the Los Angeles Olympics that who's the guy who was presidential?
Pete Ruberoff.
No, not Ruberoff. The guy was the recent Republican nominee for president.
Oh, Mitt Romney. That was 2002.
Right, Mitt Romney got into that and turned it around, and they did quite well. But you're right, Ruberoff did a good job too. So there are some success stories. Now, focusing back on Boston, if the IOC says, okay, Boston, you're our city, go through that process, what they have to do, because we realize, folks, that the IOC and the USOC do not give any money to the host city. The host city has to make the bid, and they're the ones that have to underwrite all the costs.
Well, you just said it. The IOC and the USOC offer no compensation whatsoever to build these facilities. Okay. Now, part of that bid process with Boston is saying that they're going to use existing facilities that are shared by the community, certain universities, because Boston has got a lot of universities in their area. Okay. One of the other features that they're trying to emphasize is that this will be one of the few Olympiads where it is considered the walkable Olympiad, where the venues will be close in proximity of one another. So that's going to cut down on it, but they're going to have to rely on some public transportation, which does put a strain on the community.
Oh yeah,
so
if it's walkable, though, it's far more superior to what they had in Atlanta, because in Atlanta, some of the venues were actually in Birmingham.
Yes,
and
the soccer venue
all over the place.
Well, and see, that's part of the problem right now with Boston is that some of the facilities that they are proposing that will have to be built is a soccer facility, and that's in conjunction with Patriots owner Robert Kraft, who's proposing to build a soccer facility. But yet the thing of it is people still don't know. Is that going to require public funding? Is that going to just be private funding solely? And some of these details are not worked out, which is why there is a cry on the other side to have the Boston no bid Olympiad. They don't want to bid on it, period. Because the proposed bid that they submitted is between $4.5 and $5 billion. And the group that says no bid Olympiads is coming back and saying, well, the last bid proposal for the Summer Olympics was $19 billion. So how are they going to trim it down that much? And the folks are legit. They're saying, wait a minute. If we are going to go through this process, then we need to propose and have a referendum where it happened in other cities, where the citizens of this community in the state get to say yay or nay in regards to, continuing along with this bid process. And right now, the IOC, the USOC, they're a little bit taken aback because there was no mention of any referendum to begin with, and they don't want to hear referendums because they've been faced with that with the other cities that have pulled their bids out. Right,
and this becomes a real problem. And finally, it looks like at least the folks in Boston have realized that anytime you put on something of this magnitude, you're the one that bears the burden of the cost. Perhaps in the middle of the 20th century, there were a lot of ambitious professional sports franchise owners who convinced the communities of the economic impact that a professional team would have there. And case in point, the University of Tampa had a relatively successful Division I program, but the NFL did not want to go into Tampa because there was a university program. That was their policy back in the late 60s and early 70s. Well, a guy by the name of Culverhouse came into the president of the University of Tampa, which is a beautiful campus. It's an old hotel. If you've not been there, you got to go see it. And said, here, I will donate $1 million to the University of Tampa, but the University of Tampa has to discontinue its football program. Earl Bruce was the coach at the time. Sure enough, they did away with football. Next year, in comes Tampa Bay Bucks. But they were sold a bill of goods. All of the bond issues and all the tax issues had to be borne out by the taxpayers, and it did not pan out for almost 2 decades. So this is the kind of thing that Dr. Cromartie is referring to, and this is the kind of thing that the public has become wise to. So we have this situation. What cost? At what cost is this going to be for Boston? Do you think that there's going to be enough private funding, or is it going to be public funding again? What?
It's going to have to be public funding. Every Olympiad prior has always relied on the vast majority of it being public funding. And it's government money. And that's part of the problem. Now, one facility, like I said, I mentioned the soccer facility with Robert Kraft. there's the potential that he could generate all of it from a public funding process and that. But if that is indeed the case, lay that out up front.
Right.
They're not laying that out up front. And that's what this no bid Boston process is all about. They want to know what are the hidden costs of everything prior to.
And how long are we going to have to pay those?
Yeah, they don't want to get stuck with it. And here's the other thing that happens with most of the other cities. They build facilities, Sochi is a classic example.
Oh, yeah.
They built that from the ground up. To this day, the vast majority of those dormitories and facilities have not been converted and turned over to apartments for the citizens up there. They sit empty. And that's what people are saying. We don't want to go through this and have these facilities sit unused.
Right. And this is one of the arguments, ironically, throw this in there, that some school districts throughout the country are talking about, hey, look, we need to go to school year round because we have these facilities that go fallow, dormant in the summertime, and it's a cost that we have to still maintain. So that is an argument that some people are using, and this is obviously an argument that those who build these facilities have to address, but Boston apparently feels though that they can address it.
Well, it's the key leaders of the city. The mayor is in support of it. The governor is in support of it, and you have other key business folks. Robert Kraft is in support of it. So, but again, you have that opposition side of it that says, hey, we're not telling you that we're not going to support you. What we're telling you is that let's let the citizens decide.
Right.
And if the citizens get behind it, we're going to be behind it, even though we're still going to have those economic questions.
Right. I think that came up on WBUR.
Yes.
They found a poll, 50% of the people in Boston supported it, but 33% who opposed a bid. That's a large percentage. You would expect that something of this nature, an Olympiad, a world sporting event, would receive overwhelming support. But clearly 1 in 3 of the people that were polled said no.
Well, Chicago, for their 2016 bid, did not receive overwhelming support from the citizens of Chicago. And the USOC likes to see 80% approval or higher. Chicago only got 70%. And once again, that was a major question at that particular time because you had the old, the old Daily machine behind it that was in support of it, and people were saying, okay, we've got lakefront, we've got the facilities, we're going to have to branch out, and there would be venues that were as far away as Milwaukee, and people were saying, wait a minute, where's the expense? What is the true cost of that? You're not going to get that.
They would have had to expand public transportation. Let me ask you this: what do you think? Well, was it the bid for the 2020 or the 2016 that Chicago made and President Obama went to make?
2016.
It was 2016.
Yes.
And America was shot down. Chicago was shot down.
Yes.
What does this say if Boston does not get the bid to be the host city? What does this say about possible venues or community support or support in general nationally for the Olympic movement in America?
Well, I think it's far greater than just nationally. I think it goes to the greater world again. The Olympics is seriously facing some backlash because of the tremendous expense. It's sort of like it's like a casino.
Right.
Casino wins. House rules. House wins every time. And that's what people feel that the Olympic movement is all about. We're getting away from the true aspect and idea behind what the Olympics represented. It's about money. And that's what people don't want. They're in support of the athletes in that. But the fact of the matter is, it's a great expense to sponsor any of the Olympiads, winter or summer, and the amount of money spent on each and every athlete, folks are coming back and saying, wait a minute, what about our communities? We've got our kids to think about. We've got their future to think about. And that's one of the things that, and you bring up President Obama, okay? When you look at it in terms of the direction that we're moving in this country and wanting to cut costs and trim government and all this good stuff, and that we have a city that will want to spend billions of dollars for the Olympics because they claim the notoriety is what is going to bring Boston back to life. I I don't get it.
Yeah,
I think the citizens have every legitimate right to question it. But again, if the people of Boston, Massachusetts, and the state support it, and they're able to do it without eliminating and cutting in other areas, I'm all for it. Now, does that mean that I wouldn't support it? No, not at all. I'm a huge Olympic fan. If it's on American soil, I went to Atlanta, I went to Salt Lake City, I will go to Boston. That's a car ride away, that's a plane ride away.
You went to Sydney too, didn't you?
Yes, I went to Sydney. And I have, places where I can stay with friends up in the Boston area, even over into New York, drift off to. I will get to the Olympiad. But the simple fact of the matter is that I don't have a vested interest in it, other than I get to go and partake in it. So it's the people that live there that have that vested interest, that know the true expense and the true cost of what it is going to entail to pull it off.
And that's what they're going to have to live with.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
It's time to sign off again. We want to thank you for joining us here. We want to thank you for the emails you've been sending to sportstalk@ussa.edu with your suggestions. And don't forget, you like my sweater? Check out the bookstore online. So until next time, for Fred Cromartie and United States Sports Academy, this is Dr. Arthur Ogden saying, have a great day in sport.